What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, November 4th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 5-game slate tonight, and our picks crushed it yesterday. It's nice to get back on track. Okay, let's get into these picks. So at the point guard position, I like Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat playing the Boston Celtics, who have the second worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing point guards, Tyler Hero has averaged 37.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He's projected at 37.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.5 times value. He's 6,700 DraftKings salary, 300 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 215.5 points scored in this game, and Tyler Hero has scored 36, 38, and 44 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 34, 31, and 31 minutes. So I like Tyler Hero here versus the Boston Celtics. Now I also like Mike Conley from the Utah Jazz playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing point guards, and Mike Conley has averaged 27.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. Now, he's projected at 27.3 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 32 fantasy points or more, get you 5 times value or more. He's 6,300 DraftKings salary, but he's 1,100 less on FanDuel. So I love that FanDuel price. Probably more of a FanDuel play for me. But Vegas thinks there's going to be 220.5 points scored in this game. And he scored 40 and 28 fantasy points the last 2 games, playing 30 minutes in each of those games. So I like Mike Conley here versus the Atlanta Hawks. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Josh Giddey from the Oklahoma City Thunder playing the LA Lakers, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Josh Giddey has averaged 31.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He's projected at 32.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.6 times value. He's 5,800 DraftKings salary, 200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 217.5 points scored in this game. He scored 38 fantasy points in his last game versus the Lakers, and he scored 39, 27, and 38 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 34, 27, and 32 minutes. So I like Josh Giddey here versus the LA Lakers. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, now here's a pretty decent mid-range play. Because of the minutes that this guy's playing, I like Macau Bridges from the Phoenix Suns playing the Houston Rockets, who have the 3rd worst defense overall. They give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Macau Bridges has averaged 26.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He's projected at 26.3 fantasy points here tonight, and that's 5.2 times value. He's 5,100 DraftKings salary, 100 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 218 points scored in this game, so I like Macau Bridges, who scored 24, 34, 25, and 32 fantasy points in his last 4 games here versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat playing the Boston Celtics, who have the second worst defense overall. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jimmy Butler has averaged 48.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 28% usage rate. He's projected at 47.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 9,600 DraftKings salary, 700 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 215.5 points scored in this game, so I like Jimmy Butler here versus the Boston Celtics. Now I also like Jae'Sean Tate from the Houston Rockets playing the Phoenix Suns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jae'Sean Tate has averaged 23.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 25 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 23.7 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score close to 30 fantasy points here, get you 5 times value or more, and he's 5,200 DraftKings salary, same price on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 218 points scored in this game, and Jae'Sean Tate scored 35 fantasy points last game, and he played 35 minutes. So I like Jae'Sean Tate here versus the Phoenix Suns. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? This guy's just been on fire, and I'm going to keep playing him until something goes wrong or he disappoints. Now, this is a back-to-back, but he can put up some monster fantasy points in limited minutes. So take a look at Al Horford from the Boston Celtics playing the Miami Heat, who have a good defense overall. They've been pretty good versus opposing power forwards, but Al Horford has averaged 42.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He's projected at 43.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.9 times value. He's 7,400 DraftKings salary, 500 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 215.5 points scored in this game. And Al Horford, he scored 47 fantasy points last night, and he only played 26 minutes. So I think that bodes well on this back-to-back. And he scored 43 and 42 fantasy points in the 2 games before that, playing 33 and 40 minutes. So this guy's just been on absolute fire. So I like Al Horford here versus the Miami Heat.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, now if you want to save some salary in your lineup, take a look at Georges Niang. Why can't I pronounce that name? But Georges Niang, He is from the Philadelphia 76ers, playing the Detroit Pistons, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they've been pretty good versus opposing power forwards, but Gorgeous Niang, he's averaging 19.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 21 minutes per game with a 20% usage rate. He's projected at 20.4 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 25 fantasy points or more in this one and get you over 5 times value. He's $4,400 DraftKings salary, and he's $700 less on FanDuel. So I love that FanDuel price. Take a look at his last 2 games. He scored 27 and 38 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 31 minutes in each of those games. So the minutes have gone up, his production has gone up, his salary's still low. So I like Gorgeous Niang here versus the Detroit Pistons. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Christian Wood from the Houston Rockets playing the Phoenix Suns, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Christian Wood has averaged 42.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He's projected at 42.8 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's $8,800 DraftKings salary, and he's $900 less on FanDuel. So Christian Wood has scored 55, 36, and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 35, and 27 minutes. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 218 points scored in this game. And I like this pick because Christian Wood has scored 54, 28, 46, and 46 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Suns. So I like Christian Wood here versus the Phoenix Suns. And now for one of my favorite DFS players. He just always seems to perform. His salary is never overpriced. I like Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Rudy Gobert has averaged 44.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He's projected at 45 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $8,600 DraftKings salary, $400 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 220.5 points scored in this game. And Rudy Gobert has scored 34, 42, 44, 33, and 47 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Hawks. So I like Rudy Gobert here versus the Atlanta Hawks.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.